Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 19th of March, comes to you from London. And we start, as always, by looking at currencies, then stocks, and some commodities, and then we'll look at individual stocks. We'll look at stock markets first. And we just see we've got a mixed picture. We've got some red and some green, so it just tells me immediately that we've got a bit of mix going on in the markets. The dollar is actually weaker this morning, so we're bearish below the cloud here on the short-term chart. Remembering this is my weekly, my daily, my 60-minute, my 1% log, 0.5% log, and 0.1% log on the 60-minute chart, giving me a long-term, medium-term, short-term view of the market. So long-term the dollar is bullish, but short-term it is bearish, and that's the sentiment at the moment. That's meaning that we're seeing the Eurodollar looking stronger. It's been trending quite nice for the last couple of weeks after quite a big fall away as shown up here on the point and figure chart. We still do have these downside targets hanging over us though. So even though the euro is strong on the short term, long term it's still struggling. The Japanese yen, we're seeing the dollar falling away here now, so that is indicating that we probably will see a continuing weakness in the dollar just in the very short term. Sterling actually holding up quite strongly despite the political turmoil in the run-up to Brexit. But we're seeing sterling really just sideways the last 24, 48 hours, so really just waiting to see what happens next. Long term, we're still bearish, but short and medium term, the picture is looking more bullish. Against the euro, sterling actually looking more bullish on the longer term chart, just starting to weaken on the short term chart. And against the Swiss franc, we're seeing that showing up here as well. Bitcoin, not much change here. It's down 1/3%, but really just slowly wandering out into positive territory, but no big change there. The S&P 500 index edged higher last night, so this recovery now well underway. It's interesting to see that we have moved into positive territory on all three time frames. We've got good upside targets on the short-term chart, so for the moment, the S&P looking strong again. The Nasdaq also has good upside targets, 12% upside on this medium-term chart, of course. So we've still got to get through the high that we saw last year, but the recovery is well underway at the moment. The Dow also now back into bullish territory, was held back a bit by Boeing last week, and the Russell 2000, the broader-based index, just starting to poke its head through the clouds. So we are seeing now better performance all around. The futures up very slightly this morning, so no clear on the Nasdaq E-mini 0.08%, so no clear heads up as to which way the market will open yet. The UK market is up just slightly, looking stronger all the time on this short-term chart. So we are seeing the UK market pushing higher and shaking off any Brexit effect. The 250 is actually down slightly this morning, but mid-caps still look pretty good all round as well in the UK. The DAX very flat this morning, just slightly up. The big story there yesterday, of course, was Deutsche Bank and Commerzbank potentially merging. And then the CAC 40 we see also is down slightly, but still looking pretty good. The one European chart that's actually quite convincingly through on the long-term chart. The Nikkei was down slightly overnight, and the Hang Seng Index also just up 0.19%. The Shanghai Composite down very slightly, but holding on to its gains. And in India, the Sensex continuing to push ahead. Many upside targets on this market, still looking really good. And the Aussie market down very slightly. Brent Crude is pushing higher, 67.74 this morning. We're bullish on all three time frames. $70.60 is the target they were looking to at the moment. WTI also looking bullish. 5% upside potential there as well with the targets that we're seeing, 4 or 5%. And US Nat Gas sitting at $2.87 recovers back into bullish territory on the cloud. Gold this morning looking bullish still on that short-term chart, just holding that $1,300 mark. So we are still looking pretty good. And silver also looking better there as well. Just coming back into bullish territory on the cloud. US 10-year yields, the Fed really being the key this week, below 2.6% for the first time since January. We are seeing now targets down as low as 2.47, 2.5%. 2.5% looks pretty likely. Big downside targets as well. So the picture really changing quite dramatically there. and German bond prices little changed. This data all coming from Thomson Reuters Icon. If you're a private user, the Metastock Zenith system is the same data. Absolutely amazing system. But for my stocks, I use Yahoo Finance. It's just end of day data, but refreshed in real time, so my charts are up to date. So it's a really good free data source. And this data source runs on all Updata Analytics versions. So here we see the world indices. US was up. Europe mixed this morning, and Asia mixed as well. Taking a look at what happened in the US overnight, the Dow, if we go to the best performer, Goldman Sachs, up 2.5%, Microsoft up 1.43%, pushing to a new all-time high for Microsoft, so that's looking very strong indeed. That's a really big thing for the market. Microsoft pushing higher there. If we look at Apple, they were up 1% as well. So just now moving into bullish territory there on the cloud. The Nasdaq, we saw Alphabet were down just slightly. Facebook also down slightly. And if we just take a look at the other end of the market, Tesla down 2%. Their woes continuing. Netflix, actually haven't looked at for a while. They are looking still pretty good on the recovery as well, and we've got good upside targets. The Aussie market, best performer was SDA Health. They're up 4.4%. Starting to look like a recovery here, making a higher high, so that's quite good. Still got a work to do in the long term, so it's quite key there. TPG Telecom were up 4% as well, starting to look better there too. On the downside, we had New Hope Corporation down nearly 12%, so that is quite a big fall there. And Whitehaven Coal also just pushing lower. China, we mentioned, was fairly mixed. Best performers, not so many of them. 360 Security up 1.4%. Nifty 50 in India. If we look at just ranking by percentage, we've got Bharati Infratel. They're up 3.8%. So they're the best looking stock there at the moment. And if we look on the downside, we've got only not as many stocks down, just showing India's strength there. And here we see the live prices coming in from Yahoo. Down 2% there, so quite interesting there. Looking across to Europe, if we look at the FTSE 100 index, first of all, the Hilco Pharmaceuticals, they're up 2.78%. Not enough really to change the medium-term picture. Ocado Group up 2.5%. Making new highs, new all-time highs. That's really strong for Ocado. Antofagasta as well. Burberry up 1.4%. So we're seeing quite a move there. If we move to the downside, Everaz down 5%. They were strong yesterday, but they've really unwound today. So we are seeing that Smurfit Kappa, that stock not looking at all good there. Looking at the 250 in the UK, the mid caps, Softcat up 4.3%, and the stock really powering ahead, testing new all-time highs there as well. Contour Global, they're looking pretty good, up 2.5%. If we go to the other end of the scale, Ferrexpro down 6% and Polypipe down nearly 6% as well, although the chart looks pretty good. In Europe, just looking at the Eurostoxx 50, we've got Kering Group in Paris. They're up over 1% this morning. That chart looking really good as well. Got good upside targets. Outperformed the Dow by 10% so far this year. We see here on the relative chart. LVMH also up 0.75%. Nokia are up 0.6% in Finland. On the downside, we've got SocGen down 1.2%. That's still not looking great. We see the relative still underperforming. Volkswagen haven't really had a very good time of late, and again still pushing lower here, down 5%, worse than the market. So over the years, so underperforming. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.